talk's going to start with introducing you to Sage 3. So that's the moving stuff around and having a little bit of fun kind of stuff. Then we're going to do a little bit of short lecturing on creativity, and then we'll try a little creative exercise using Sage 3. But even before we begin, I want to introduce Nurit, who's over there. Her expertise is human-computer interaction. She just won an award as an NSF postdoc, so she'll be starting in January as a postdoc here. And Ryan, who's sitting there, he's basically the guy who writes a lot of the software, like basically Sage 3. And it really, without him, we wouldn't be able to show you this today. We're literally releasing the alpha to the world today, with all these warts and bugs and so forth. So in a way, you guys are also helping us test it. Okay. So with that, I'm going to do a very quick intro of things, and then we'll get you to get Sage 3 installed. So the topic's about creative thinking, and so you're wondering, what has a computer science professor got to do with creative thinking? So 22 years ago, more than 22 years ago now, 28 years ago, I started my PhD at the University of Illinois Chicago in this lab called the Electronic Visualization Lab. And in this lab, they did a lot of really cutting edge stuff in computer graphics. One of the things was back in the 70s, they did the computer graphics for the first Star Wars movie, right? And so this lab was actually established in 1973. And what attracted me to this lab was that this was this really crazy convergence of artists and computer scientists. And their specialization is basically in visualization, making pictures out of data. And it kind of makes sense that you're going to make pictures out of data. You have a computer scientist, you want access to scientists, real scientists, so to speak, and you want access to artists, right, to inform you in how to create more effective visualizations. And so as part of this, you kind of start realizing that in all your training as a computer scientist or as a scientist, you never really go through any kind of formal training in creativity, which a lot of the arts have, right? But yet we know innately as scientists, what we do is just as creative as what the artists do, right? So I want to sort of train, in this case, most of the scientists, some of the secret techniques that the artists have been using. And has anyone taken or attended one of these creativity workshops ever? You see, so there you go. Why is it that it's not part of our scientific curriculum, right? Okay. So moving on, we're going to install Sage. Sage basically evolved from something we started developing in 2004. It was continually funded by National Science Foundation. And most recently, we got a new award in 2020. We're at Sage version 3. And primarily back then, it was to drive large display walls. Really big, expensive display walls, like on the order of like $500K to $1 million, and in some cases $2 million. Really great for computer science research, really impractical for most scientists who want to be able to do the same kind of work. Fast forward to sort of the present, we were able to start building systems that continue to go down in price to the point now where you can build these kind of Sage walls for as little as $3,000. A computer and a couple of monitors. So this little picture I took at home. This is my desk at home. When the pandemic started, I bought two 46-inch TVs. They were $350 each. And they were 4K. So I put them together, plugged in my computer, and I got a display wall at home. Wow. And it's a great gaming console too. Right? So now you're probably thinking, oh man, I should have taken that offer for the 1080 graphics card, because that's what you need to drive out of these things, right? Okay. So, and then over time, during the course of all this, we had about 800 institutions around the world that use our system, and this is basically the last 100 of them that we're listing, right? These are basically people who all over the world have built similar tile displays, but have no software to drive it, because Microsoft Windows or your Macs just kind of stuck with big display walls. Okay. Here's some pictures of some of the display walls, and you can see they kind of come in all different shapes and sizes. You know, some people really like to show off, and we have lots of money to do that, right? Or they're more modest in Florida, for example, right? This is Taiwan. And also companies are starting to adopt our software as well. And okay, so before I start this stage exercise, we did a little fun experiment just before the pandemic. We had a whole bunch of students who were reared on using Sage for our research meetings. And we thought, wouldn't it be interesting? We took Sage away from them and had them go back to the way research meetings used to be done. In other words, you got a projector, you got one cable, and you pass it around, right? So in other words, take the toys away, see what happens. This was the survey results for what happens if you just go with a classical projector model. And so these are little survey questions like, I maintain focus on the meeting. I contribute content to the meeting. I find it easy to contribute content. I actively participate in the meeting. I get sufficient feedback. I find it easy to make suggestions. I enjoy using this technology, you know, and so forth. And so you can sort of see for the classical projector model, it's kind of like, yeah, all right. And on the Sage side, most were far more favorable. And then suddenly the pandemic happened. And so normally, like, oh, wait, okay, all research stops, we're screwed. But then we thought, this is an opportunity. Everyone went to Zoom. So we did another survey on what's your experience with Zoom against all these questions. And well, these two are awfully similar, right? So in a good sense, if this is what you're reared on, Zoom is great for you because it's about the same. The bad news is, well, Zoom is about the same, right? Especially when you can do so much better. Okay, so let's try stage 3. Were you guys able to download stage 3 and also install it? Okay. Okay.
If anyone needs help, just raise your hand.
Yeah, if you need help, raise your hand. I'm going to exit out of my stage 3. Actually, I'm going to go back. We can all see. So if you can look at this screen for a quick second, this is what it should look like when you first launch stage 3. So Nurit and Ryan are going to come around to make sure you're okay before we go. Everyone okay with this? Oh, yeah, and by the way, if your screen is white or dark, it's because we support light mode and dark mode. And I think by default, it might be dependent on your laptop. If you naturally use light mode, it will stick to light mode. But you can change it too. So once so when you're going to go back a level,
I already logged in.
you're jumping the gun back off.
Okay, I'll go back.
Okay, because we got a separate different server for you to connect to.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I'll log out too.
I'm in trouble already.
That's okay. You're free to roam, but we're all going to go into the same room together, so that way we start at the same place. Oh yeah, don't use the UH login. Yeah. No. You can use your personal login. Yeah, that would be great. No, thank you for reminding me. So by the way, if you have your UH login, don't use it. There is something goofy with the way UH does their login. So use your personal Google login, or it's okay to use guest. You just click on guest, and you can just put in the name. Okay, be Mickey Mouse, whatever you like.
Okay.
Wait, but you don't want us to go to the main server? What server did you want?
Oh yeah, the server I want you to go to is Keller. there are a bunch of servers, and what you want to do is right there, click on that menu and go to Keller.
Okay, and then log in.
And then log in. LA is the ones that we host here in Hawaii, so that we can get a little more response time instead of going all the way to Chicago where all the other servers are. Oh, there's Kate. Good job, Kate. And you know how to do emoticons on your laptop or whatever? You can paste emoticons as your name and you get a little face, smiley face kind of thing too. Okay. So I'm gonna get everybody to get, when you're in this apartment, we should be able to see you guys pop up right here. And I should see your little arrows flying around the screen like little flies, hopefully. Maybe it was down there. Oscar.
I think I might have moved the board just as FYI.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Okay, I'm going to jump in so that the folks in Zoom land can see what we're doing. You know which board we?
So are we supposed to be on?
Okay. Oh, sorry. We're going to go to the Pele. Oh, sorry. The what's that at the top left-hand corner?
It's like the HITSI board at the very bottom.
Oh, the HITSI board. Yep. Sorry. Yeah, when you log in, go to the HITSI board. HIDSI. Yep. If you want to back out, just hit the home button and then jump back in. That's Oscar?
Sorry, I'm very.
And it's okay if you want to click and move stuff, that's fine too. But it gets better. I don't see it. Working?
Yeah, how do we see our own cursor?
Okay. How do you see your own cursor?
How do I see my cursor? Right here.
That's your own cursor.
Oh, it doesn't have my name on it.
Well, you should know who you are. No, that was a good comment. We're thinking of adding that too as a feature. Do we want people to report?
I don't see myself. Where am I?
Okay, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. Okay, I'll move my slides back over here. Okay, are you guys good? Everyone good?
Yeah.
What's that? Oh, okay. Oh, we'll wait a little bit.
There, now I can see myself.
Okay, for those of you who are in, click on this board. Right? Click on this window, and you see this little drop down? This little clicky thing right there. Download yourself a copy of this slide.
So if you need to mouse, use the space bar and your mouse to scan around.
Scan around.
If you scroll in and out.
We found our way, we did it.
Yeah, I keep moving your stuff. Yeah, so if you
Yeah.
want to do the space bar.
Yeah, or you could look, if you look on the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little mini map, and you can click on zoom out.
Okay, so we're supposed to be in the mini map.
So if you want, you can go to the mini map. So here's
Yeah.
what the mini map looks like on your laptop,
That's cool.
Zoom on it.
right?
I just think it's.
Select justified or whatever.
Otherwise you can space bar and scroll out to zip on the space bar. Scroll in, then.
Uh-oh. I'm trying to do some data science. Somebody. All right, so everybody, I'll introduce you to the little mini map right here. It's on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. So you can use the mini map to, like, for example, fit everything onto your screen. Or if you click any of the little boxes, it will focus directly to that content. Kind of like a zoom into that content. And on the top right-hand corner, you should be able to see little icons representing each one of you. If you click on any one of you, you will zoom to each other's views.
Oh,
So if you find somebody like, I don't know, say Oscar, you hover over Oscar, you click on Oscar, you'll be exactly where Oscar's pointer is. Or Katie's pointer, right? Got it?
that just shows you where their pointer is, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
So that's our best guess of what they're looking at.
Ah, it's good for monitoring people's work, right? Oh, sorry.
Looking like a director of Okay, how's everyone doing? Good?
We still need help?
Anybody need a little bit of help?
Would it be nice to review for the other side? Just feels nice.
Okay, you're working out.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
You don't see you under your person, but you. Because you're but everyone else.
So Jason, we also have these little navigation buttons.
Yeah, you can try the mouse, see what happens.
Yeah.
One of them kind of fits everything. One of them that's using a hand. You can, yeah.
You can just drag around.
Yeah, you can also drag around. And then I think there's a shortcut you're dragging around. If you happen to be any real close, that's your space bar and it's dragging. That's a clicking drag. People are. And two finger or zoom, you can do two finger zoom if you want. You're used to doing that on your Mac. And remember, it doesn't affect the screen, it affects only you.
Okay.
Because that way you won't mess, the whole wall. But keep in mind, anything you move on the wall, on your screen, you're moving for everybody in this, in the collaboration.
So. I was like, okay, I can do that.
Okay, so on your own laptops, find a picture, like of your dog, of your vacation, anybody, anything. Okay? And I want you to drag and drop it into the stage screen, somewhere in this gray area.
Okay.
Does it support HIC or HEIC?
Ryan, no, we don't do HEIC, sorry. Yeah, if you could save it as a PNG or JPEG. Yeah, it is. Drag the picture.
Okay, I think I did that, but now I lost my screen.
We're going to conference. You're funny for it.
Where's my?
Yeah. That's cost money. It does, yeah. Did mine go up there? No.
I think I dropped that too.
Yeah.
I think that our open applications, image viewer is bugged.
Oh, it's a bug. Okay. Thank you for finding a bug.
Okay, so. How is it?
It's like the picture of the mountain.
So, yeah, feel free if you see anything that's up there. You want to make it larger, you can also drag and stretch it for the whole wall.
Okay.
Here's my picture. Just drag it anywhere, right?
Yeah, he's gonna ask you to click on options.
There you go.
I'll do it.
Upload only or?
No, upload.
So now we're back to that.
Yeah, can't see.
Then I can go back here.
He may have been outside of the board.
I see, that's it.
Oh, and that in the checkerboard.
I see.
If I lose my picture. Put on my board.
Oh, yeah. You click on it.
Yeah, but then.
Okay.
Try a different one.
Just have to move it something out of the way for, yeah. Right, not yet.
There might be like 5 of my pictures. Yeah, I know, I'm sure.
Is it because, is it a weird? Is it one of these HDIs?
Oh, maybe. You ever take that? I think that we are limited, we are checking the types of files. So PNGs and JPEGs.
Yeah.
It's just all these.
So all you have to do is find an image that you on your regular laptop, desktop, sure. Then drag and drop it into this area. Okay. Yeah.
And then open files. And open
Interesting. But it wasn't up there. And you're waiting for UA.
No, we do have a
With my phone.
The video.
Oh, no, great.
Oh, yeah. It's an HP, yeah. Okay. Okay. How are we all doing? Looks like we're showing content up there. That's good.
I found out that it doesn't, it won't take those HDIs.
Oh, yeah, you have to do JPEG or PNG for now because it's HDIC is only a Mac.
Oh, okay.
Bad Mac.
I have a JPEG, but I don't see it up there. Just curious if you have an idea. I'll just drop this on here. JPEG.
Yeah, it should be there. Did you see it anywhere?
Let's try again. Usually it opens up a little window.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's just, and on the Mac is usually the easiest.
Yeah. That's good. That should be fine.
There you go.
But he's sideways.
Low. Yeah. It's somewhere.
Is that it? The tiny thing in the center? There's one here.
No.
Mine is that way, but he said somehow it came out sideways.
Is it the tiny thing in the top left?
Could be, could be. Someone may have moved it.
Ah.
Hold on, let me move it up.
Yeah, it looks like our stuff. Oh, sorry. I tried it like 5 times. So. Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You can make it bigger like this if you want.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
If you want to delete your other ones, you can just click on it.
Yeah.
And then that little, there should be menus that you can go into that you close the app.
Perfect.
And that deletes that picture off the board?
Yeah,
Whew, there he goes. Try again.
so if you click on any one of these, the little menu is gonna pop up. And if you want, there's one particular menu that has a little down arrow, which means you can download anything you see that's posted onto your laptop. So if you like Gwen's doggy picture, you can get a copy of it by clicking on her doggy picture and download it. If you want a copy of the slides today, click on this PDF, and then you can also download a copy of the slides. Okay? Yeah,
Is it the whole PDF or is it?
the whole PDF. Yeah, it grabs the whole thing.
Find it better.
And if you, yeah, and it also takes like MP4 movie files. You can throw it up there too. Just keep in mind that it could take a while to upload because it's a big movie file.
What is the memory?
On this computer, the one we're using, the server, I don't know.
Tom?
How much RAM do we have on that?
Oh, no,
On
we got
Keller?
Yeah.
32
Yeah,
gigs.
ask me that. He's like,
We should be fine.
But if like we were using this to share like, it wouldn't be good to share like data sets and stuff over this. Or, like,
That's to come.
Okay.
So we're working with a separate, like if you were to do data science on this, we're gonna do these data science cells. You can type in stuff, but you can run the processes offline.
Oh,
So then what you can do is you can turn this into a giant poster board.
Oh, that's cool.
Where you can have all these computational cells and diagrams and visualizations all in one. And then you can have other people jump in and add to it. That's where we're gonna go. And Maddie's allocation on working in that area. Okay, so you guys have got a feel for stage 3. I'm going to continue the lecturing because otherwise we're going to run out of time. You're gonna be here all day. Okay. And by the way, even though when this meeting is over, now that you have Sage 3 installed, feel free to come back and connect to the Sage 3 server yourself and play with it. It's all set up so it's completely persistent. And if you have research meetings in your own labs, you can use it for your own meetings. So long as you have a proper, use your Google ID as the login, you can make your own boards specifically for your meetings. So if you want at the state energy office, for example, you can just use it to connect in. Assuming they don't have a weird firewall thing. Right? Okay, so that's stage 3. So let's talk about creativity now. Let me move this over here so you can all see. Okay, move it back.
I need to say who people from the review stuff.
Eventually.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
You just didn't solve review stuff.
That's how you do it. You control it. Why is this popping up here? I want to hide this. Hey, Ryan, how do you get the Windows to not show the taskbar all of a sudden?
But that thing is orange on the taskbar.
Which one?
Never just down it.
That one? Oh,
This wants to be.
okay. So you can either look at these slides by looking at from here, or you can actually look on your laptop. Or since I gave you a copy of the PDFs, you can follow that too. So now there are 3 ways of basically looking at stuff. So as you can sort of see, we're kind of displacing a lot of the content sharing capability that you normally use with Zoom, where you can only share one thing at a time. Now you have the ability to share multiple things at a time. You can jump around between different things. Okay, so I've been teaching sort of a little creativity workshop for mainly my computer science classes in computer animation, data visualization, virtual reality, and video game design, but not so much in this kind of audience. And all this time, I basically teach mechanics. We do this and we do that. So this time around, I thought I'd take a step back. And since you guys are scientists, I asked the question, is there any science to this creativity stuff? Or is this just artsy fartsy crap? Right? So I started looking at some of the more recent neuroscience literature out there. And there is something to it scientifically. One of the things I found was this particular article. And basically, they found that there is potentially a genetic advantage for certain people. That there's a gene that makes you perhaps slightly more creative because it enables your neurons to produce more serotonin that makes the connections between different parts of your brain. So that's the genetic part. So does that mean that everyone else is going to just suck? Right? Is there only like X-Men and then everyone else? Well, the good news is training makes a lot of difference too. Okay. Okay, where are we? Oh, we're down to one slide for me. Okay, that's fine. So that's the right slide. Yeah. So that's the genetic slide. So training makes a whole lot of difference too. And let me add the slide back because I like it in 2-slide mode. See, one of the nice things about showing a PDF in say 3D, especially a big wall, is that you can show multiple slides at the same time, so you can refer back and forth, right? You can't do that in PowerPoint, right? So let's look at this one. So the stuff that you normally hear in popular, mythology is that you are a left brain thinker or a right brain thinker, right? Well, that's far too simplistic. Okay, maybe your left brain is it's certain that your left brain is for language. But the thing is, creativity is not just about one hemisphere. It's basically different parts of your brain all connected together. So nowadays, neuroscientists have this concept that there are these 3 brain networks that are all working together as you process information from the world. One of them is this executive attention network, which basically is when you're really focused on solving a problem, right? And it's dependent on your working memory, how much working memory you have access to. The other one is, let me jump my slide. The imagination network, and this is where your brain is starting to see into the future, become a little more imaginative about things. And then there's a salience network, which kind of pulls you back and say, okay, focus, what's really important versus crap, right? Otherwise, if you don't have the ability to filter for salience, the whole world will be just noise, right? Okay, so what they found was that if all these things are going at the same time, it actually diminishes creativity. Okay, and by reducing executive attention network, you can boost creativity. So what kind of things can you do to purposely train your brain to amplify certain ways your brain thinks, right, towards creativity? Okay, stand here. So they took a look at ADHD kids, and they basically found that more of their imagination networks were in play. They're very difficult, they're difficulty focusing. That seems to kind of make sense when you think about ADHD. Focus attention has been shown to actually limit spontaneity. They look at jazz musicians. When they are improvising, they're primarily using this imagination network. But if you ask these jazz musicians play something they know by rote, then this network kind of calms down and they focus on the executive function network. Okay. So this is basically to sort of show that, okay, there is some repeatable patterns across different people, right, of these networks working. Okay, so here's an interesting one. And this is where it starts to encroach on what you're trying to do. So they look at professional artists, and they looked at them, see, where did it, what's this one? Okay. So they looked at the professional artists and they asked them to work on this art planning project, right? And so here they're trying to balance something creative and something systematic. Like for example, designing a new art museum, right? They're trying to balance the both, right? And basically, what they found was that the professionals know how to manage the communication between the imagination network and the executive control network better than people who are not professional artists, because they learn and they train themselves to do this over and over again. And then here's a cool one. They took professional dancers, artists, musicians, professional ones, and then they took novices and they had them both do tasks that were not in their field. So the dancer had to draw something artistic, right? The musician had to come up with a new dance thing, right? And again, what they noticed was that because of their training, they were able to come up with more creative solutions than people who were novices, who never gone through this creative training methodology. So it's fortunately for us, most of who may not have this wonder gene, there's hope, right? Okay, so how do we become more creative? So that's the question, right? What are things that we can do? First of all, you got to accept the fact that it's a skill. Just like, how do I become really good at playing tennis? Or how do I become really good at running a marathon? Right? If you're not basically training yourself to be creative and you're asked on a deadline tomorrow, you're going to come up with really creative ideas, you're not going to succeed because you've never gone through that training. Okay? So that's something that we don't talk about enough in the sciences, right? Because we often come to a research meeting and say, what are the great ideas we're going to put together for a proposal? We're not really good at that, right? Because we've never trained ourselves to do that. Okay, so two things I want to talk about. What are the conditions that you need to set up for yourself for that training? Just like conditions are like, if you're going to be a pro tennis player, what are the conditions? Well, number one, I got to be on a court. I got to have a tennis racket. Those are the conditions, right? You cannot be a pro tennis player if you don't accept the fact that you have to satisfy that simple condition of being on a court. You can't watch enough YouTube videos to be good at it, right? So those are the conditions. And then once you're on the court, what are the mechanics? What do you do? Okay, so we're going to go through that. Next slide.
Jason, I have a question.
Yeah.
Just because people have probably already experienced this. So these two brain systems working at the same time. So have you ever had the experience of driving home, driving somewhere that you know the route very well, and you're not really paying attention to driving home, yet you're thinking about a bunch of other things? That's an example of using your creative mind, which is whatever you're thinking of when you're driving home. But the rest of the executive part of your brain is actually driving the car home for you.
Exactly.
And if you've ever had the experience of, all of a sudden ending up in a different place that but that wasn't where you were intending to go because you were thinking about something else. So your brain can actually take you on a different path that you know very well, but while your brain is being creative, thinking about something else.
Mm-hmm.
Have they done any studies on how anxiety affects the ability to be creative?
There might be, but I don't know enough. Yeah, so, yeah, good question though. Okay, so let's look at the conditions. All right, could you pop this up a little higher for me? So let's look at conditions. So there's a guy from Berkeley, Donald McKinnon, and then later on, John Cleese also sort of picked it up too. John Cleese, as you know, is vegan, like Monty Python and stuff like that. So they have to, on this very short deadline, come up with creative, funny skits, right? How do comedians do this? Oh my God. That's talk about anxiety, right, for someone who can't be funny. So throughout his life, he's got this methodology, and then he decides to also look into it, thinking, there's got to be some quote unquote science to this. And sure enough, this gentleman in Berkeley, which is where Gwen was from,
Yeah.
has actually done a lot of this work already and has this methodology, which is very similar to what John Cleese does. And first thing is creativity is not a talent, right? It's a way of operating. Creative people put themselves in a mood that allows their natural creativity to function. An ability to play and even be childlike. Wait, when was the last time you were in a research meeting and you were childlike? Generally, your advisor doesn't encourage you to do that, right? Because you're gonna act like an idiot, stop it, right? But in creativity, that actually helps. Okay, so in this state, people are able to explore and discover, even though there may not be an immediate practical purpose to their play for its own sake is the key. At least that's what these folks say.
Okay, let me jump to the next slide.
So they've got this notion of this open mode and closed mode of working. So most of the times when you're working on your laptop, trying to get your projects done, trying to do those spreadsheets, you're in this closed mode. You're really focused on getting stuff done. In that mode, creativity is generally not possible. This is back to the executive attention stuff, right? The open mode is more relaxed, less purposeful, contemplative, more playful, right? Play allows our natural creativity to surface. I've had situations where we're in a research meeting and we're kind of discussing how to do stuff, and we're kind of stuck trying to make a decision. Sometimes I will purposely say something that was intended to be completely humorous, just so that we could see there's a way to shake it loose. Right. So, I was reading Saul Werman, who's an architect. He said, in all your efforts to try and do the right thing, have you ever thought about what it means to do the wrong thing? See if that will come up with a different alternative way of thinking about the problem you're trying to solve. Okay, so here are the conditions.
I'm gonna make this a little bit small so it's a little easier to see.
Here are the conditions. Here.
Sorry, one over.
You need space. They argue that you cannot be creative in your work environment. Because if you are trying to be creative in your work environment, there will be an interruption on your laptop that says, oh, you've got this email, can you address it? And then you're going to switch right back into attention mode and you're not going to be able to do it. Sometimes, people go for a walk. That helps a lot, right? Time. Remember this thing about practice, right? Just like if you're an athlete, you've got to set a schedule to practice your tennis skills. You've got to set a schedule to practice your creativity skills. Deferring decisions. This is the hardest for most scientists. Scientists, when they come into a research meeting, when they're done, they want those decisions right away. Okay, what are we going to do? It makes us really anxious to not be able to say, well, we're going to do this next, right? That we don't really know what we're going to do. And so, by what we understand about creativity, we have to be able to tolerate discomfort of not solving the problem and waiting for that problem to finally fester in your brain to figure out what the right solution is. So how does this factor into your research career? Well, oftentimes when we work on a grant proposal, sometimes this drives people crazy. I will start on a grant proposal early, but I will never have written text in a way that is concrete because I'm still thinking about it. If I just draft it out, that will give me time to brew over it. And really only towards the end of the deadline have I spent all this time thinking about it and going off and having a walk and things like that, where it finally connects. But I allow myself that confidence, because I've done it many times, to know I'll get the right answer. I just have to be aware that there's going to be this discomfort that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing for a while. Okay. So, okay, and so there's this confidence part. When you're brainstorming in a team, right? Here's the challenge, right? You're posting ideas out there, and you're thinking, oh my God, they're all judging me, right? You're gonna post this idea, but that's really dumb, right? Or that's really, how does he come up with these ideas? It's amazing, right? So you gotta have this confidence of being able to share ideas without worrying about people shooting you down. And so that sort of factors into the methodology of how to create more creative ideas, is that in a creative session, you have to set these rules where everyone has to throw ideas up as fast as possible without judging. Because ideas are very, very delicate when they first emerge, right? They're like this little bud that you planted as a seed, right? You pick it up, you squeeze too hard, and it's dead. And you don't know where it's going to go. So you've got to be very gentle in the beginning, otherwise it'll never emerge. Okay? And then lastly, I mentioned humor, right? Laughter creates relaxation, and then humor widens our perspective. Okay, now, let's say we set these conditions for ourselves. We were doing great. You know, we've got a creative oasis. Now that we're done and we finally are able to call those ideas and form something concrete to work on, you got to now go back to the close mode. Say, okay, now we're focused, we're going to do these things. If you try to go back in the close mode, and then, well, you go back in the close mode, you suddenly say, oh, I'm just going to, goof off and laugh and all this stuff. That's going to work against you because you're in the close mode, you're trying to get stuff done. It will also drive your other collaborators crazy because you're trying to focus and get work done. But once you have got, say, a prototype done and you're gathering feedback and you want to decide what should we do next, then it's perfectly okay to go back into the open mode so you can be more creative again. Okay? So you can't really mix the two together. It's not really effective to do that. Okay, so so far I've only sort of touched on things like collaboration. I want to say a few words about collaboration. Harvard Business School basically says all collaborative brainstorming sessions are bullshit. They're not effective. Right? You go, oh my God, it's Harvard. They got to know something. Well, so they did a meta study, like 800 studies, and they found that that is partially true. Partially meaning a lot of it boils down to how you manage the people who are contributing and brainstorming. That can actually hurt productivity and creativity. So you have to control for that. But there's this one guy, Stephen Johnson, who's basically an author of media theory. He has this book called Where Good Ideas Come From. And if you haven't seen his YouTube video, it's worth a look. This, for most of us as scientists, we think, someday I would really aspire to be, like Archimedes or something like that, where I go, Eureka, this is it, I found it, or right, or I'm Darwin, right, and I'm out there, and suddenly it comes up to me, this is the theory of life, right? And the truth of the matter is, most of these great ideas emerge basically after a very, very long gestation period, anywhere between 2 years to 10 years. And in Darwin's notes, he wrote, I found it, this is it. But somebody later went and looked at all his notes, and he actually had this concept almost a decade before. And it took him time to finally bring those hunches into solidification, right? And oftentimes you'll have a great idea and it's kind of half-cocked, right? And that's perfectly fine. But if you go to a conference and you know, at a cocktail, having cocktails and stuff like that, you run into someone, you say, hey, what are you working on? I'm working on this. And you say, you know, I have this crazy idea about this. And somebody will say, well, I have this other idea. And then when you put it together, it was the other half that was needed to make those things work. And there are lots of cases in science where that's exactly that, right? That's exactly that phenomenon. When Tim Berners-Lee came up with the web, he developed it as a tool just for himself to store his data, right? It wasn't about the interweb, the internet, right? And it took him about 10 years before this became the World Wide Web. Okay, okay, so random collision folks are really important. For those who are sort of into business and business school, guy at here in Chicago, who's School of Business, he has this chart and he measured all these, you know, business school graduates and track who's more successful and who's less successful based on a whole bunch of different factors. And what he found was basically the one thing that sort of allows them to predict pretty reasonably how successful they're going to be was their network connectivity. Network as in people network. Okay, here's what it means. For people who are successful, they tend to be at the center of all these other people who are from potentially very different disciplines, not just among people who are in your discipline. So one good example, someone perfect is like this is Gwen, right? Gwen has a background in neuroscientist, but she's building infrastructure in atmospheric science, astronomy, right? All these different components, right? Whereas oftentimes when we're trained as scientists, we're trained that here's you as the, say, biologist, you should only know the top biologists in your field, that's it. More and more, when we look at what National Science Foundation is interested in, they're interested in this convergent research. You may have heard the term convergent research. And because they know that the potentially exciting discoveries are going to happen in this space, most of the really top scientists that I know, that I grew up with, have mentored me, were all like this. Now, it doesn't mean when you start out, you can start out like this. It actually hurts you to start out like this as a junior professor. As a junior professor, you have to focus, right, to make your name. And then over time, you go from being this to this. Okay. So keep an eye on yourself so you don't get stuck in this area too long as you mature as a scientist. And so when I teach this idea in my video game class, I like to tell the students, these are you, you're little rocks. And we throw you into a rock grinder, and the rock grinder grinds you all up and polishes you off. And in the end, you look like beautiful gems. Okay, it's painful, right? Working with domain scientists is painful. Working with computer scientists is painful. They have this strange language, right? And so, but it's absolutely necessary in order to create this beautification process. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna speed up a little bit. So let's get concrete now. Let's get more and more concrete, and then we're gonna do the brainstorm exercise. Some mechanics. So I've looked at stuff that Disney animators do. So Disney animators, they got to come up with a really clever skit for, say, Mickey Mouse, right? So what do? They get a giant ream of paper and they start drawing fast. Mickey does this, Mickey does that, Mickey jumps over this, Mickey finds this, and they don't even think about what's happening rationally to Mickey. Mickey is going through all these animations. And then once they've drawn as many of these as possible, then they can start evaluating. This kind of works, this may not so good, right? So again, separating the creative, the imagination networks from the focus attention network, right? So when you're brainstorming, pick the medium that lets you get your ideas out from your brain onto some permanent media as fast as you can. And that's how I evaluate creativity software. If I'm using creative software like mind mapping tools, you've seen some of those. Some of them take multiple clicks to get an idea across. Bad. You want a tool that minimizes the number of clicks to go from idea onto computer. Now, why do you want to get idea from computer? Why can't I just go for a long walk and come up with all these great ideas? It's because it's another failing of humans. We can only store about 7 things in our working memory. You got to write something down. Okay, maybe you can go for a walk and write something down. That's cool too, right? You guys mostly text while walking anyway. Okay. Okay. So this chart is free. I found this on the website. It's great. They actually sell all these different brainstorming idea techniques as little cards you can buy. So if you're thinking of some smart gift to give to kids or something over Christmas, that could be one of them. So there are lots and lots of methods. Now, whichever one will work for you will depend on you. Okay. The first time you try to use any one of these methods, it will feel uncomfortable. Because remember, imagine the first time you play tennis, right? You're going to feel uncomfortable and you go, I don't know if this brainstorm method is for me. I couldn't hit the ball. So don't give up. You got to try it multiple times. Eventually you'll settle in on this is the way I think I like this method. Okay, but this is an entire menu of possible methods. And so what I've done in this map is basically I've marked on the stars the methods that I use. The stars are in green are primarily ones that happen to be really good to do in Sage, which I can talk about in a moment. The orange ones are things that I'm always conscious about when I'm trying to be creative. Like, for example, Gwen likes to go for a walk. I like to go for a walk too, or I'll have a great idea in the shower. And actually, one of them is that shower thoughts, right? It's perfectly valid, right? You waste a lot of water, but you have a good idea when you're in the shower too, right? So let's go through each one of some of these more relevant ones, especially for Sage. And
also, Jason, it's like, I was reading something the other day about just letting your mind wander. You ever do that? Just, whether consciously or subconsciously, but if you just intentionally say, okay, I'm just gonna let my mind wander now for a while.
Yeah.
That's the creative process.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. I think there is actually one of them somewhere for exactly that.
Kind of like the shower thoughts too.
Kind of like the shower thoughts too.
Because you can't do much else in the shower. Well, no, let's just stop there.
I didn't say anything. Okay, let's jump back to the slides. Where are my slides again? Oh, this was it. Okay. All right. Oops.
But you're right, Jason, about different, time management tools, creativity tools. If they're too clunky, they just don't work.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
doesn't work for trying to get your ideas.
Yep. Okay. I'll let all you guys control my slides so I don't have to. So
Thank you. Okay, here we go. So you can look at this in detail if you want later. And by the way, I have over here, if you just download it, this is a full resolution copy of this. So if you want, you can print it up on a poster board. This group basically sells these as posters and cards, but they make it's completely open source. They actually let you download the actual image. It's perfectly okay to download and distribute. So very sageable methods, but in all these methods aren't going to do you any darn bit of good unless you're following the open mode mantra. Okay? In other words, quantity over quality. You're not judging ideas. Don't judge ideas. Encourage wild ideas and build on the ideas of others. And here's the thing that you can glean from the Harvard report. Work independently at first. So let's say you're told tomorrow you're gonna have a brainstorm meeting about something. Do your homework. Use these techniques to brainstorm your own ideas. Come to the meeting, then you want to use Sage, throw these ideas up on Sage, or you can do it within Sage. Then you start looking at all the ideas that people come up with. You need that personal time, is what the Harvard report is saying. Okay. Now, over time, if you're working in a group that you're very comfortable with, perfectly fine to come in and just be creative. But I'm willing to bet most people have different rhythms in the day. They feel more creative at night, late night, or in the early morning, depending on where their energy level is, right? So, methods, concept wall. This is a concept wall. It's a wall where you can throw out lots of different ideas. That's one suggestion that this chart makes. Another one, 10 ideas in 10 minutes. You set a timer, 10 minutes, come up with 10 ideas. Another one, 101 ideas. What does that mean? It means, well, back to quantity over quality. The problem with ideas is that sometimes because you are the one who made them, you're kind of like, oh, this is a really good idea, I don't want to give it up, right? But if you make 101 ideas, it's okay to toss in, a dozen or so, because you still got lots, right? Blending ideas, seeing inspiration from pictures, like what you guys are posting down here. Sometimes when we have a regular meeting in our lab, students, as we're talking about a subject, will throw up pictures that are related, and that will inspire us to think about things in a different way. Okay, bias. We love our own ideas, right? You got to be willing to not fully be wed to your own ideas. Allow the process to work, where your idea plus somebody else's idea will actually make this possible. Right? Anonymous posting. So one thing you can do in Sage 3 is that you type in your name, you can type in an anonymous name. That way you don't have the pressure of being, ooh, I'm not sure that's a good idea, but I'm just gonna put it up there. At least it's up there, right? Here's another technique. It's called the 6-3-5 technique. 6 people, each write 3 ideas on his own sheet of paper. You pass that sheet to the next person, who has to fill in the table with 3 more ideas based on what you wrote. And they pass that on and they write 3 more ideas. For 5 minutes, right? Yeah, 5 minutes. And so in round robin, you're going to have collected a lot of great ideas. Now, the problem with this 6-3-5 method is it doesn't scale very well to large groups. You have far too much, right? That's the only, and they recommend not trying to go over 6 in those instances. And then lastly, they also recommend using cloud services, like Sage, self-advertisement. Okay, so next slide. Give you some very fast examples. This is an example of 101 ideas. Some time back, I had a meeting with my lab students who were trying to figure out what do we do next in our research. So we used a wall where we had a general guidelines in the Post-it notes. One was, let's put down everything that we currently do that we're funded to do. Then we put down what are things that we can do because of our expertise. And we said, what are things that we want to do, either small or really big? We put down what are random ideas that we may or may not want to do, but we just happen to know of them. And then what are big trendy things, right? Because in the world, we've got, blockchain is really trendy and AI is really trendy. Louise laughing. This is a blockchain thing. And so what we did was we created this wall and we left it up on the lab wall for over a month. And every day we saw it constantly. And then whenever we were walking down the street, we had an idea, we would add it to the wall and build on it. So I thought, wow, I'm so clever, I came up with this cool idea. Actually, next slide shows I didn't. Somebody else did this before me.
jump to the next slide.
Wow.
This is BMW,
Right.
right? BMW looks at cars, looks at fashion, looks at architecture, because all these are integral in the design of their vehicles, right? And they go through magazines, cuttings, and stick them on the wall. We can do one better. We can use technology to do it. We can use Sage.
You can use Google, right? And then
Look at this one. Here's another idea of a persistent idea. This is every car manufacturer, believe it or not, even though in this battery cam world, uses clay. They make a clay model, full-scale model of the car. And so when I started working with General Motors back in 1995, we asked them, you've got computers, why are you still using clay? And he said, because the designers like to walk into their daily routine, see the clay model, and go, huh, shape, 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 shape. And they move on, right? It's always in their minds, thinking about how to make the idea better. Just like that persistent wall I was talking about. Okay, how about science? This is the University of Michigan. So before we started working with them, this is back in 2005, they had this board, and this was in their lunchroom. And what they do is they do a lot of simulation models of climate, right? They would run these simulation models, and then they would print them out on a laser printer, and then they would clip them. So during their lunch, they would see these results. And then we thought, and then we started working with the computer science folks in Michigan, and they said, can we use your Sage software to allow them to type the results of their simulation models directly onto the screen? And then they built this and put it into the lunchroom so that they can use it to discuss, you know, their simulation models during lunchtime. Remember that I talked about bias? Well, the problem with having brainstorm meetings is that people who tend to have more confident voices drown out quieter people. Okay. I ran a workshop with folks from Japan, from Taiwan, from Australia, and the US, right? And when you put this together, what do you know? And you say brainstorm, what do you think normally happens? It's usually the Americans and the Australians say, well, we should do this, we should do that, you should do that. You hear anything from the Japanese and Taiwanese? No. And so I knew this would happen because I worked with the Japanese for over a decade. And we actually had trainers who trained us how Japanese work and think. So what we did was we told everybody, you're not going to talk about your ideas. You're going to get on stage, and in half an hour, I want you to type in your ideas and post it. And that's it. This slowing down allowed people who are, you know, Japanese or Koreans or whatever, their first language is not English. When they come up with an idea, first they're thinking in their native tongue oftentimes, then they got to translate to English, then they got to figure out how to say it. That's the hurdle they go through, right? So I thought, how can I equalize that? Give them the time to type and reflect and get it out there. And actually, most Japanese thinkers are that way. They're not like Americans. They're like, right? They like to be contemplative. And actually, it frustrates Americans a lot when you meet Japanese collaborators, and after a meeting, they haven't made this decision or commitment. It's because Japanese are here for the long term. They want to know if you're a long-term collaborator that we really want to work with, right? Go ahead.
How did the Americans change with the extra time? Like, did they change behaviors at all?
Yeah. And but a lot of it was because we also had a coach. So we knew somebody who ran a company called Pacific Interface, who basically taught us all the protocols and how the Japanese think and how the Japanese make decisions. And at the same time, Pacific Interface was also the liaison with the Japanese company. This was NTT, you know, the AT&T of Japan. They also code to them on how Americans work, right? And so we as Americans, we had to sort of calm down. We have made a decision. That's okay. Oftentimes you'll see in a meeting with Japanese, they'll go, and you're talking, and you're wondering, is the phone asleep? What's going on, right? And then after all is said and done, they'll go, yes, we have to think about it. And that's it. That's all you're going to get. But you got to trust in the fact that they're going to come back, think about it, and talk some more. And you have to respect that process. That's how they work. Okay. We did that same exercise with Japanese and Australians and folks from Chicago, and we split them up, and then we used this stage board to basically blend the ideas together. And then, as far as blending ideas, very quickly, this was the Haven project. It was what we were working on with the energy stuff. This is how it started. This is one binder, 1,000 pages, one of 4 of how to transition Hawaii to 100% renewable energy by 2045. We built a visualization dashboard for the state energy office to look at that data. And then Nurit started working for me. Nurit works in the area of tangible computing. Basically, imagine you got an action figure, you put it on, you point a computer at it, it comes to life, that kind of stuff. So tangible computing to me was kind of like toy-like. I thought, I do scientific visualization. I don't know if I'm going to be able to use this, right? But because I hired her as an RA, she kind of polluted my mind, right? And one day, the state was thinking, is there any way to visualize this data that was more friendly to people who are not scientists? And that's where I thought, oh, reach, right? And tangibles. I saw exactly something like this, a 3D model of an island from a newspaper in American Samoa. And they had little pins and flags that they plugged in to show the different air districts and so forth where you had certain resources. I thought, can we use our computer knowledge to create something like this, where we projected digital information, we had tangible pucks that allow people to turn on and turn off different layers, not like their iPads, right? And that's how this was born. And then it got so successful, Pico started doing this work, right? Oh, here's the video. So it was all Nurit's fault, right? And so because of this, Nurit stayed on, and that's how we convinced NSF to give her a postdoc focused on how we can take novel technologies that are coming out of human-computer interaction to better convey scientific knowledge to people who are not scientists. Right? Remember that problem Monique had to explain to the general public, right? Okay, so how are we doing on time? We're okay. I'll try to wrap up so we can do something and then end.
I was just thinking when they were talking about in the last seminar how useful that 3D map would have been to show the spread of COVID over the islands and the testing and the hospitals and the numbers of patients and all that. That would have been super easy to understand that way.
Here's another idea that we didn't show from the Haven project. So all these different portfolios have different characteristics. So they have how much of it is solar energy, how much of it involves biofuels, how much of it involves wind energy, right? How do you make a visualization that captures each one of the portfolios? So this is my garden in Chicago, right? And I took this picture because it occurred to me that I could turn what I see here into a visualization. Humans are really good at finding beautiful plants and weeds in a garden, right? We'll look at something, oh, that's beautiful, and it's that. So how can you use that benefit of our capabilities as humans to improve visualization techniques? So what we did was we have this visualization where the size of this
represented how much solar is in the portfolio. The size of this drop of water is how much hydro is in that portfolio. The tilt was how much wind was in the portfolio. Like if it tilted more, there was more wind. This was biofuel, and this was the ugly fuel, right? Coal. And so this is bigger, there's more coal in the portfolio. So now you painted every single scenario.
Oh,
So now you can start picking out the beautiful flowers that you're looking for, right? Or you can start, okay, I can sort of see, I don't like these, right? There are lots of, fossil fuels in there. Okay, but again, this was a picture I took almost 15 years ago. It took 15 years to find an application for it, right? Okay, anyway. Okay, finally, what we're gonna do today. Actually, this is a bit of a head fake. So, I'm running out of time. So this is your brainstorming time. We're gonna clear this board. You've been tasked to design the museum, the Hawaii Museum of Science and Stuff. IMOS. Okay, remember humor? Okay. I want you in 10 minutes, using the post-it note feature in Sage, to just post ideas of what you would like to see in IMOS. Okay, so we can clear up the Baby Yodas, unless you want Baby Yoda to be too, that's fine. But so to use the post-it note feature, here's what you do. If you go to the applications box, under there should be a sticky notes. You see that? Click on that and it makes one. Now, if you want to do it faster, move your mouse to some blank part of the screen and just type Shift S. And I'll just put a post-it note where your pointer is. Okay? Yeah, there you go. You're typing. Good. And go ahead and type it. Type away your ideas. You can also change the color of your sticky if you want afterwards. So we're going to start a timer. Maybe we'll only have about, we'll do it for about 10 minutes. So I'll let you know when we get to around 10 minutes.
Does the text automatically
What do we want?
resize?
Yes. Yeah, so for now, don't worry, just type in the idea. So long as you can read them for now, that's fine. It's not important that other people can read them right now. Just get those ideas down. And you don't have to spell check. Please don't.
Again, bad ideas, misspelled ideas.
Bad ideas, remember, bad ideas is like quantity over quality.
Ideas that you don't remember what they meant 2 seconds after you write them down is also fine.
Yeah.
you said Shift F, that's the.
Shift S for sticky.
Shift S.
S for sticky.
Oh,
There you go. Yeah. And then just click into it or double click and just type away. So once you've got an idea, go to the next one. Don't worry about resizing, spell checking, just ideas, fast and furious.
And that's the thing, right? Yeah.
Don't worry about resizing. We'll do that afterwards. Remember, we're doing the cleanup and the judging afterwards. Mike says, cannot help but play with the size.
I can't figure out when every time I type my sticky, then it pops up the little, pops that up instead of letting me type.
I can type.
Why does that not do that before? Maybe I can type while it's still up there.
It stays there all the time that you're focused on.
And then I can just type right there. Okay, perfect.
I noticed that yesterday, I was like,
From my. IBM, AI. Wants. That's yeah, here's the second question.
Okay,
Yeah, it's scary, but it's a real.
we're gonna stop for a quick second. And we're gonna do some more in a moment, but let's do this. Normally when you do this among yourself, you probably do it for a bit longer. What I want you to do now is, you guys have thrown all your ideas onto the wall. That's great. Now, I want you to look at each other's ideas. And to do that, in Sage, you have two options. One is you can make it bigger. Another easy option is in your mini map, just jump around to read each of your post-its.
if the text isn't resizing properly, if someone's sticky, just resize that. The text.
We need to size our own
It
little-
looks like when you in the map, they want directly.
I don't know how there you go. Like that. Oh, see, that's what I saw.
Yeah, you're helping us. Look at those ideas, and as you're looking at these ideas, if something comes to your mind, add to it. Right? You press Shift S and add a new idea. So, for example, I look at this one that says "Hey Al," right? I want to know more. What aspect? Right? Fish. Agriculture. So agriculture exists. Right? I think, collaborate with Waikiki Aquarium.
All right, so this is great. So normally we let this process go on a little bit longer, but I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to start it again. Thank you for giving us ideas for our next grant proposal. Okay, so to finish up the task, normally what I would do in this is, okay, remember, we're trying to design a museum, right? So imagine that on the bottom left-hand corner is the entrance to the museum. Take those ideas and try to figure out how would you lay out the order of the exhibit, and then lining itself to the second floor, the third floor. We're really ambitious, this giant museum, multi-story museum. Now, that's going to be hard to do. So before you do that, what you're going to have to do is to look at these ideas and first cluster, figure out how to cluster them. So you go, okay, this one is about Heiau. Was anyone else talking about something related to Heiau that we can somehow put together into a grander Heiau theme, right? Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so you guys understand the mechanics of what I'm doing to you guys now, right? First, get them up there, then augment each other's ideas and come up with more ideas, then consolidate, group them together, then you can start organizing it into multiple floors or whatever. Okay, that's the step, right? Okay, I'm gonna show you one last slide and then we're gonna end today. I really appreciate you guys being so patient with our text.
Wow, cool.
Hope it was fun though.
No,
Okay.
there's a lot of similar ideas that came up, similar but slightly different.
Like I said, it's our next grant proposal. And this is my logo for our museum. I made it in 5 minutes in PowerPoint. So next slide is my last slide. No, this one is my last slide. So you're not done yet. I've got homework for you. So part of the CI Track grant that you guys have supported on, you guys have to help us form what we call the Cyber Club. Now, we're spending a lot of energy teaching you guys all these skills. We've got to figure out how you can transmit those skills to the next generation, right? Just like I'm teaching you guys how to do all this creative stuff. How do you transmit that to the next generation of scientists in your domain? If you're an atmospheric scientist, how do we teach the atmospheric scientists to think like you guys, the new generation of scientists? So we want the Cyber Club to be about the community of practice in data science and cyber infrastructure use, because that's what is the program that funded at NSF. We want graduate fellows as mentors and cyber ambassadors to students across departments. So in other words, one thing you might do is you might go to the department and say, I'd like to do a voluntary lecture on this Cyber Club idea, and also some of the ideas that you've heard in this class, in the various data science workshops, like cyber infrastructure techniques and so forth. So I want you to go through this process using SAGE, brainstorm some ideas, and then at a later meeting, we're going to come back and see what you produced and start figuring out what the main themes are. Does that make sense? So, but to do that, we need somebody who's willing to take charge to make the board that we're all going to use. Anyone want to do that? Make the board. Who's logged in right now to save with their Google ID? Anybody? You're using guests? Okay, that's okay. I'll tell you what, I'll make the board. I'll send you the board name, and you can jump in and go crazy. And so when you post these ideas, use Post-it notes, use pictures, okay? If you have other universities that you know of that are doing really successful programs, they're similar to this, paste the URL in. When you do that in Sage, the web page will actually appear inside Sage.
Oh, cool.
So then when you look at it, it's right there. Okay? You can do this at home because it's all virtual in Sage 3. But if you want, you can also come in here, launch this up, and just talk, right? But I think what we'll do is just do it at home, remember, by yourself. And then in one of these other workshop meetings that we have, or the fellows meetings, we can just do it, just see where you guys are.
You can just check in on the board.
Yeah, we can check in on the board, see if you guys are doing it.
Awesome.
Okay? And any questions?
Just want to add one other thought, Jason, when we were talking back about, how you build your network of connections throughout your career, you might notice that we're doing something really intentional here, which is to bring together folks from very different backgrounds. And what we're hoping is that you will start making some of those connections now and thinking about how what you take away from this experience, how you can share that with other folks in your departments and undergrads. Because this isn't the kind of normal way of running a class or a project. Typically, it's focused on one kind of discipline, but we really like to mix it up because we think we get this kind of creativity. And I think the cyber club could end up being, I think, super successful and really innovative on campus. We'd love to see it start here and grow over time.
Yeah, any of the workshops you're helping the other professors put together, if you feel this is going to be useful for your department, feel free to do a repeat performance for that. If anyone's interested in this creativity stuff, and you want to do a repeat performance or do a road show with all these departments, that's fine too. I'll give you all the materials. Okay.
And so, Jason, we can make our own Sage board at home.
Yes.
For trying to organize our ideas.
Yeah,
around
so
things.
so if we log out of so on the bottom left-hand corner, when you click on the home button right here.
But you have to be logged in.
Yes.
If you're a guest, you want to see
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you had logged in with like a Google ID, your personal one for now, that's fine. There will normally be a button under here that says plus. If you click on it, you will make your own board. And you can just give it a name, whatever you want. Okay. So this is where you guys are all at. You can sort of see where people are. And actually, feel free to roam around. You can log out, and we've got multiple servers. 2 of them are in Chicago. So we'll go to the main server in Chicago. You can log in as guests.
So I made my own account.
Chicago's asleep.
Sage.
Right. What's that?
I made my own account on Sage.
Oh, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I can do
just,
that.
yeah, remember that password? Because you need it to delete your own boards. So Lewis University, they're talking about grading classes. So if you want to use in your classes you teach or anything you TA for, you can use that. You can use it.
Are there privacy settings?
Not yet. Yeah, that's the next thing. Yeah. Yeah. And what's that?
So right now it's just free reign.
Go back to kind of put the YouTube video.
Oh, where is it?
Okay, in the same board.
Oh, in the main server?
No, I'm kidding.
Okay, like. Oh, one of the things that Nurit's working on, where's that video? Under here?
Yeah.
We're working on a 3-minute video that repeats the introduction to how to work with Sage. So if you missed anything, you can just rewatch that, or if you want to introduce it to other students who might get into this, just share the YouTube video, share the download link. There's also a Slack channel. If you need help, go to that, post a question. Oh, here's the video. We're not done yet with the video, but we'll share the YouTube URL and you can just watch. It's only 3 minutes long. So, it's not like me, like talk on forever.
Yeah, if you click on it, you'll see that there's in the toolbar for it, there's a link to the copy.
Oh, right. Good point. So if you click on it, that's the YouTube URL, but we'll get you a different one. Don't use this one for now. There's a better one we're working on. This was just the first draft that she worked on today. Okay.
How do I find, what if I forgot my password already?
Well, then you're totally screwed. Because we haven't worked on those permission things yet, so that's why I recommend using your Google personal.
Okay, I'll try that.
Yeah, that's okay, we'll just clear out the system, no worries, Gwen. Okay, so, hope this was fun. And informative. I hope you can take some of these ideas back to your departments and your, the groups that you work with. And have a good weekend.